Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
He picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
We'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome. This is Wacky Wednesday on the Arrowhead Addict channel. I'm Adam Best, joined as always by my co-host Sterling Holmes, and producer Richard is going to keep us on track today. Sterling, my man, how you doing?
I'm good. The weather kind of sucks. Hate this. But I thought about, maybe grabbing a little inflatable tube, grabbing a rope, tying it to the back of a car, and having some fun down like Metcalf or something here in Kansas City. Thought it might be a fun idea. I'll buy a little dangerous, but what's wrong with a little danger in our lives?
Yeah, we have snow here in Alabama, and I don't know if you know this, I'm moving to LA in a month. So this might be my last snow day for a while. So I'm going to get out there with the dog. My dog loves snow, just loves it, just loves to frolic and stomp around in the snow. So we're going to get out there after the show and have some fun. I'm
always convinced you live in Arkansas. I think Alabama's a front. I'm convinced that this is why you always have your back door just shut, whatever that is back there. You don't let it see because you don't live in Alabama. You're an Arkansas man. I get it.
I am not. I don't know why Arkansas would be, Alabama would be preferable to Arkansas or vice versa. But
football, basketball, a lot of reasons.
Well, I could never root for Alabama because
Cold Shores. There you go. Boom.
Muscle Shoals. But being a Chiefs fan and then coming here at the height of, or the tail end of the height of the Alabama dynasty, I couldn't be like a Chiefs Alabama fan. That would be like front runner city, man. You can't do that. You just can't.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a great show for you guys today. We're kind of in no man's land where it's not quite the off season because the NFL combine in Indianapolis hasn't started yet. And we're not in the season because the Super Bowl is behind us. So I thought it would be a good time for us to sort of analyze the roster and set the table for the offseason, particularly free agency, kind of like a little sneak peek, a little bit of draft stuff. I've started digging in a bit. I'm not a big college football guy, but this time of year, I just devour any kind of prospect info I can get. And this week, we're going to start with the offense. Next week, we're going to do the defense. I thought there was so much to chew on, particularly with the offense, that we could just make an entire show of it. So let's go ahead and get into this off-season primer, grading the Chiefs offense. We're going to grade each unit based on 2024 performance. And I think the way to do this is relative to expectations to some extent. If you're cool with that.
Sure.
And some pre-discussion thoughts here. The news today is that the salary cap spiked once again. I've kind of been predicting this, but it went from $255.4 million to either $277.5 million or $281.5 million, somewhere in that range. So that's going to exceed projections by about $5 to $10 million. And why is that happening? Well, you got these gambling partners. You got DraftKings. You got FanDuel. You have Amazon. You have YouTube, and now Netflix, just money pouring in for the NFL. I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe let's just hit on this real quick. I kind of think it's good news for the teams that don't try to aggressively work around the cap, because the smaller the cap is, the more of an advantage it is to work around the cap. Does that track at all?
No, sorry.
No?
What I actually think it does is it helps people who have large contracts on the books. It makes it so, for example, the Chiefs might not have to restructure Joe Thuney. They might just say, we can take that cap hit now. Originally we thought they were going to have to for sure restructure, extend Joe Tooney. Now I still think they might extend and restructure Joe, but now they wouldn't have to necessarily. This makes Jawan Taylor's contract more palatable cap hit wise for this year. Not great, but more palatable. What I think the misnomer is, at least in my opinion, is you see the $22 million, you go, oh, well, now we can keep Trey Smith. Well, the Chiefs really can't, because now every team in the NFL has $22 million more to work with. It's not just the Chiefs. So that's where I think some of the misnomer is. Yeah, it means the Chiefs could maybe offer more than they thought originally to Trey, but that means other teams can too, including the Bears. So if you're Trey Smith, you're thrilled. If you are Jamar Chase, you're thrilled. If you are T. Higgins, you're not thrilled, because this means you probably are going to get franchise tag now, right? To me, if you're going to franchise tag someone, this helps. If you're under contract already, this helps the team. When it comes to new contracts, I just think that it's one of those situations where we all imagine, yes, look at what we can do now. We can get a wide receiver and a left tackle, but all it does is everyone else gets $22 million more, right? It's just simple economics. It is what it is. The top of the top still going to get their money is basically what it comes down to. And I think it helps people I think it helps the Eagles who have the void years. I think it helps teams.
But why would it help the Eagles when they're already just willing to go over whatever the salary cap is? Well, I think some of the logic is this helps the Bengals, because you're required to spend most of the salary cap over like a 3-year period. Sure. So the higher that goes, the less cheap they can be. And also, there's just not as big of an advantage to working around it, I guess.
No, it helps the Bengals because it helps them be able to, in my opinion, utilize the franchise tag, because that gives them more money up front to work with, right? It does help those teams like the Eagles who have that much money, because then you can just almost restructure those contracts and maybe even front load them more now versus just having to wait. So you can use the cap in a multitude of ways. Yeah. I just think that my more or less issue, or not even issue, but my more or less pushback is the misnomer that it allows the Chiefs to be able to keep Trey Smith now, or it makes it easier for Nick Bolton. All it does is allows every team to have $22 million more to work with to use for a bidding war, if that's the case. That's more or less my pushback.
I guess another way to explain this would be the Eagles are going to spend what they want to spend regardless, and they're going to find a way. The Chiefs, this is $5 or $10 million more that the Chiefs probably weren't going to spend. They don't really go above and beyond the cap that much. They don't do the whole void year thing. We talked about that last week, but the point here is that I think it's, with the way the cap is spiking each year, it's never been more safe to kind of carry over some of those contracts. And I think the Eagles, maybe that's a little bit too aggressive for some people. I tend to think they can keep doing this until the wheels fall off with Jalen Hurts, and then they'll have to take their medicine. That was the problem with the New Orleans Saints. They successfully kicked the can down the road, and then Sean Payton left, Drew Brees retired, and they said, we're just going to keep doing this because we think we're still in a contention window. They weren't. It really screwed them over. But I think this is somewhat sustainable. I would like the Chiefs to get more aggressive. I agree with you, though. The big grand prizes in this free agency period, that the Trey Smiths, we'll talk more about him, the T. Higgins, those guys have to be licking their lips and saying "Wooga" right now, right? Because they are going to cash in big time. A few other notes here. We kind of learned this lesson last year. Buyer beware of injury discount stickers. DJ Humphries. I know that was kind of a midseason flyer, but even and same with Juju Smith-Schuster, but particularly Hollywood Brown. Last year we had a discussion about Darnell Mooney, who I really wanted, versus Hollywood Brown. And Darnell Mooney was quite a bit more expensive, but he played every game. And part of the reason Hollywood Brown got the contract he got was because people were worried if he could stay on the field. So something to think about. The next thing to think about is dynasties are not forged by being sentimental. I think the New England Patriots were very good at knowing when to cut their losses, or knowing when that dynasty would rather be a year too early than a year too late on letting a guy walk or getting rid of a guy. I think free agency is more about augmenting than renovating. I know it's fun to spend the big money, but that usually doesn't. The biggest spender in free agency ultimately probably is the biggest loser a lot of the time. Think of it like yeah.
The Titans this year, they spent a lot in free agency, or at least even, free agency is relative. They did Legarius trade, but then they signed him to a massive extension. They had some offensive line. I mean, the Titans spent
Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, they kind of splurged. And think about the Patriots. The 1 year they actually did splurge, it worked out horribly for them. They spent a bunch of money on like Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. It's like the Big Lebowski. The rug and the Big Lebowski, it ties the room together. It's not the whole thing. The draft is the main thing. So, and I think there are certain strategies that are replicable. So missing piece to a weak link system, secondary, O-line, finding a guy that kind of ties that group together. I think mercenary pass rushers, we won't get to them today, but that's something to think about. A guy that can come in and give you 50, 60, 70 pressures. I think that's what they were trying to do with Charles Omenihu. Unfortunately, he just wasn't available as much as you would have liked a 2-year free agent to be. And then last year, one of the current trends is a running back a non-contending team did not want to pay. That's kind of the trend with Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. Those guys in particular, unfortunately, this year's class is not as good. We will get to that. But let's just dig in with the offense. Let's get started with the easy one. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes, the starter. Key free agents. Actually, Carson Wentz is up. And I just want to hear your thoughts on this group before we get into a grade.
Yeah, well, we thought this was the best group in the NFL, would have given it an A+ going into the year. They played like a C-. I don't know if you disagree there, but based on expectations, I mean, hell, this may have even been a D+ performance or a season by Patrick. Yeah, there was a lot of other question marks, and it wasn't all on him, but this was the worst year we've seen from Patrick Mahomes. So grades on a scale, obviously. A lot of teams, the worst year in Patrick Mahomes' career is the best year of any Chicago Bears quarterback in their entire history. Perspective, right? There's obviously something here there. Yeah, I don't know what they do with backup quarterback next year. Carson Wentz comes back fine. It doesn't really matter that much to me. It shouldn't matter that much to anyone else. If that's happening, it's almost the Peyton Manning method, where we don't practice for bleeped, right? Whoever the backup quarterback is, it's probably going to be a veteran. Andy likes those guys. If you need that guy for a game or two, he can get by. You need it for a season. Season's over.
I think the backup quarterback is kind of important in Kansas City because they're always in contention. And Andy Reid is such a quarterback whisperer that he has shown he can get a really good game or two, or even a half. We saw this with Chad Henne. Hell, even a quarter with Chad Henne in that Jacksonville game several years back in the playoffs. So I would like to see Carson Wentz back, some more continuity. Hopefully we never have to use him. I'm in agreement with you. I think I'm going to give Mahomes 2 grades. I'm going to grade him against the curve and still give him an A- because A-, B+, because there was a 4 or 5 game stretch there at the end of the season and into the playoffs where he did look like the best quarterback in the league. But the bulk of the regular season and the Super Bowl, and for his personal standards, I'm going to give him a D+, just because yeah. So I'm in agreement with you. So you kind of have to look at, compared to most of the league, I still think long-term, he's the best quarterback. I think they'll figure it out. His offensive line situation, his receiver situation, his running game, nothing was ideal. I know you guys talked about scheme yesterday. I thought the offense got stale and unimaginative. So it was not a good situation for him, but I think he'd be the first one to tell you that he's got to be better. So potential targets here, none. This is the least interesting. Well, this and center are probably the least interesting discussions we're going to have today. This is one of the most interesting discussions, and that is running back. The starter, we don't even know. I don't think the way Isaiah Pacheco came back in the second half of the season, we can even presume he's the starter. He just did not look good. He didn't even not look like the version of himself who was already kind of a fringe starter. And now we have key free agents, Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine. What are your thoughts on this group?
Man, it was C- at best, because Kareem Hunt bolstered it that much. Samaje Perine was fine. Samaje did his job. I just wish he didn't. He was used more, quite frankly. Pacheco was just a massive letdown, injuries and production wise. Real big bummer. I'm hoping a full offseason to let him get healthy and get right will change things for him, right? But who knows? The vision's never been great. So if the athleticism goes, that's just not going to fly, not going to cut it. We'll find out. Again, I'm hoping for the best for Isaiah. He'll probably be on the roster next year because of the contract. Kareem, I think, is done. I would have to imagine maybe he comes back. He can be your short yardage guy, but I would be shocked if you saw Samaje, Kareem, and Isaiah Pacheco just running it back there next year. Free agent class isn't great, but there's a new guy who was released yesterday in Raheem Mostert, former Dolphin and 49er. Yes, he's older, but I think he could be a one-year guy. That makes sense because he brings something different. He is very, very explosive. People say wear and tear. He's got a lot of tear, not a lot of wear. Hasn't been used a ton. Had a great 2023. Not much this year, obviously. Dolphins going younger. I think if you told me one running back who I think the Chiefs could potentially have some fun with in their offense, who's a free agent, Raheem Mostert might be that guy.
It's interesting that you said he's a former 49er because I think 49 is also his age. He is not a spring. I think he's like 32, 33, something like that. Pretty old, but we need to judge running backs age-wise in miles, not necessarily years. I think that's your point. Man, this is a hard unit to grade because if I'm comparing them to the rest of the league, it is an F. I think this is one of the worst running back rooms in the entire league. And Kareem Hunt played his guts out. He came from off the couch, did about as good as a guy in his situation possibly could. Samaje Perine's getting up there. I had high hopes for him, given that he was arguably the most efficient receiving back in the league the previous season. I don't know that guy ever manifested in Kansas City. And then Isaiah Pacheco, I'm just really worried about him because those guys that run into contact, Jamal Anderson, Larry Johnson, Chiefs fans know all about that. And you know, the probably the biggest example of all, Christian Okoye, they just do not last very long. Those styles of runners, the Marion Barbers, the Ahmad Bradshaws. So fun to watch, but probably not a guy that's going to last very long. And so given what was expected from them, I'd probably give them more like a C or a C- because I think they did about as good as they could. But I have to tell you, this group, I went back and watched the Super Bowl. I basically watched the all 22. I've watched every angle you can. And if Spags on a scale of 1 to 10 treated Saquon Barkley with an 11 on the respect scale, Vic Fangio gave this group a 1 out of 10. I mean, it looked like their secondary just had their backs turned the entire time and just said, we're going to only worry about the Chiefs receivers if Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, Isaiah Pacheco think they can beat us, or the coaching staff does. We're going to let them try. They just had zero respect for that. And that's going to put Patrick Mahomes. Everyone wants to talk about the offensive line, and that does need fixing. But if there's no running game to fear and guys can't get open, I mean, that's when Patrick Mahomes shits his pants. That's when he freaks out. That's when Andy has no answers because it's just a situation that is untenable. So here are some potential targets. You mentioned Raheem Mostert. There are a bunch of other free agents, unfortunately not as good as last year's class, which was excellent. And I feel like the Chiefs are trying to solve this problem and catch up with this trend of all the contenders moving to stud running backs who can really punish teams for sitting back in those two eye shells and open up the deep passing attack. They're coming to that late. So you have Aaron Jones, he's 30. You have Nick Chubb, he's 29. He did maybe an extra year off of recovery gets him back to looking like the same guy. But I did not think Nick Chubb looked like, before he got hurt, that was the best pure rusher in the NFL. He was not the same guy. Najee Harris, you like the durability, the yards after contact, but if the Chiefs want a guy with juice, he's not it. Javonte Williams, not impressed. J.K. Dobbins, that's a gamble they don't need. Here's the exciting thing, guys. This draft class, for running backs is stacked. One of the best 3 in the past 15 years is kind of what we're hearing. My early favorite analytical profiles are everybody's darling, Ashton Genty. And you might think he's out of reach, but actually Daniel Jeremiah had him slip to 21 in a mock yesterday.
Not trading up for a running back in the first round. You're not doing that.
Hey, it is. I just want us to reevaluate things. I was as big of a running backs don't matter guy 3 or 4 years ago, as you'll find. Things have totally changed in the NFL. If you look at all the contenders, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams. I know I'm missing a few guys too. James Cook was awesome. All these guys are opening up the deep passing game and punishing teams for sitting back. So I think finding someone special, and he's a generational type guy.
James Cook's not a generational guy. Kyron Williams is not a generational guy.
They're
like
the gap between them and Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, that is a wide chasm. And then if you're talking about Saquon Barkley, that is a generational guy.
Well, of course, but my point is they're not drafting 4th. 3rd rounder, sure. 4th rounder, hell yes. I just but the running back room was so bad this year that now we've gone to we need to trade up in the 1st round for a running back. No, we just need a guy who's above average or at least average. What the Chiefs should do, I'll let you finish. I apologize for taking over. I just thought that was so crazy that I had to jump in, trading up in the 1st round for a running back. What I would do personally, 1 year for Raheem Mostert, right? And then Cam Scatterbo 4th round. Maybe it has to be the 3rd. I think
Cam, the 3rd.
Probably because of where they're drafting and all that stuff. But Cam Scatterbo would make so much sense. I just don't want him to take over the entire backfield as a rookie. That's why I said Raheem Mostert, just for the speed. That way you keep him fresh as well. Look at Raheem's 2023. Absolutely insane. Insane. But I think Cam Scatterbo makes so much sense on this team, and it's a very Andy Reid-like running back. I don't like doing this comp because people are going to automatically say, no, what are you talking about? A little like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What they thought he was going to be. Not what he ended up being, but what I think the Chiefs thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be, right? A great pass-catching back. He's that short, stocky kind of guy, right? I think Cam Scatterbo makes a ton of sense. Personally, that's the guy I target.
I like that. I'll get to that in a second. Ashton Genty, I don't think it's that crazy for a couple of reasons. First of all, I was kind of laughing at the Detroit Lions for picking Jahmyr Gibbs 12th or whatever it was on draft night. They are laughing now. He is incredible. He has completely changed that offense. And in a way is Jared Goff's best friend. I just think having a weapon like that would be awesome. Also, the Chiefs in the 30s, their record of drafting there is terrible. Frankly, it's terrible. You know, they picked CH there. They picked FAU there. And when they traded up, they traded up and got Trent McDuffie. I know they also had Karlaftis that year, a little bit earlier. I don't think Karlaftis falls to 31 or 32. And trading up a little bit to get Xavier Worthy. I'm kind of with the Chiefs now. Go up and get your guy. They've got an extra pick. And I don't think just because CH didn't work out, we should swear off ever trying to draft a running back again. The Chiefs kind of did that with Todd Blackledge for like most of my life, where they just said, we're never drafting a quarterback in the 1st round again. You don't have to be that scared. Cam Scatterbo, I'm with you. There are 3 guys that I really like. The other 2 besides Genty are this is an early dig in too, but Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, really like him, and Cam Scatterbo, because of their receiving potential and prowess. I think you and I are both drawn to guys that can catch and be that dual purpose guy. When I look at Cam Scatterbo, I see a little bit of Maurice Jones-Drew. Maybe it would be a comp. I like that kind of player. Maybe a little bit of Zach Charbonnet. It's going to come down to how he tests. You know, if he runs slower than expected, he's going to slide and he might not be as attractive. But if he runs faster than expected, I think it's wheels up. But a guy like that in the 3rd round, I would be totally down with it. There are some cut candidates here. A guy like Miles Sanders or Zach Moss could get released. I'm just not really into either of those guys. But here's something really interesting I'll throw at you. The Buccaneers have 3 good backs. They have Bucky Irving, who's kind of emerging as the guy. They have Sean Tucker, who's really underrated and has looked good in flashes. And then Rachaad White is kind of the guy that they're probably not going to be able to use as much as they should be able to. And Rachaad White maybe isn't the best pure rusher, but as a receiver, I think he's one of the best receiving backs in the league. And I think he would fit wonderfully in Kansas City. Someone like him or someone like Travis Etienne, those could be other options. By the way, Travis Etienne's brother is in this draft class. Maybe he ends up in Kansas City.
Yeah, Rachaad White makes sense. Bucky Irving was great. Loved him coming out. But thank you, Dynasty Fantasy Football, Bucky Irving. Rachaad White, though, he's such a good pass catcher. That is his role. Not the most efficient runner, though, as you mentioned. His running ability is Pacheco-esque. Very different styles, but like yards per carry and just maybe some of the vision issues. But pass catching wise, Rachaad White is nearly elite. Which, by the way, question from Paul on Facebook. Sterling, are you the son of Jeff and Tana? Yes, I am. Those are my parents.
There you go. Small world. Let's move on to tight end. I'm sure we're going to talk about running back nonstop all the way up to the draft. Starter here, tight end 1, Travis Kelce. We don't know. Tight end 2 is definitely going to be Noah Gray. And then key free agents, none. Jared Wiley's going to be coming back off a rookie year, cut short by an injury. So we hope he follows in Travis Kelce's footsteps and goes on to have a lucrative career after missing most of his rookie season. Thoughts on the group here, Sterling?
Yeah, it was about a B last year overall. Travis took a massive step back. I mean, just a massive step back overall. Yards after catch was just detrimental to this Chiefs offense of what they were trying to do. And maybe they was going to be different with Rashee Rice. Don't need to hash out that conversation again. But Travis Kelce is still a really good tight end, right? Just to his standards, it was a crazy step back. But Noah Gray took a nice step forward. I really like what Noah Gray did. The consistency wasn't always there, but when the ball went Noah Gray's way, he caught it. I like Noah Gray a lot, okay? I don't think he's ever going to be a 1,000-yard tight end, but can he be an 800-yard tight end? Yeah, I think he probably could be. Jared Wiley is still a complete unknown. Yeah, this is a position group that I have a lot of questions about, especially if Travis Kelce retires. I just personally think Kelce comes back one more year. You're muted, by the way, just so you know. You say you're not muted, but you're muted. Now you're good.
Am I good now?
Now you are.
I wasn't muted. My mic went out or something. It just depends if Travis Kelce is over that game. Like, how much did that game sting? Can he stomach that being his final note in the NFL? And that's just something he's going to have to answer himself. He's got a lot of things popping off the field. The guy's had a lot of injuries, a lot of surgeries, been around for a long time. A lot of mileage, man. You playing that many postseasons like he has, that's an extra couple seasons almost. So I'm torn. You know, if Travis wants to come back, of course, I would love to have him back. If his mind and his heart and soul are all in it and he wants to be here, you don't turn a guy away like that after everything he's given the franchise, everything he's given the city. On the other hand, if he wants to kind of move on to his next career, $17 million, baby, that's a lot of money the Chiefs could play with. Now into Noah Gray. I feel good about Noah Gray, but I think if Noah Gray had to become the tight end 1, life would be a little bit more difficult for him. He would draw tougher matchups. He would be on the field more. He might not be as efficient. I really like him as a tight end 2 that can kind of be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, can kind of do some blocking out of the backfield, can kind of do some of the dirty work I don't know how much room he has to grow. I think he did grow some this year. Maybe he has some more, but I would like to see if Travis Kelce isn't back, them make another move there, just because I don't think they necessarily have a sure thing. I'm gonna grade this room. I can't really give it better than a B- just because of Travis Kelce's lofty standards. And the bummer is, during the divisional round, he really played great against the Houston Texans. I thought, man, maybe he's rediscovered the fountain of youth yet again. But then in the conference championship of the Super Bowl, he just kind of disappeared. I think he had a couple catches, 15 yards or something in each round. And that's just very un-Travis Kelce like. So disappointing, but you're right. He has taken a step back. There are some potential targets out there. Cut candidates like Evan Ingram, Noah Fant are some possibilities. The best free agents are Juwan Johnson and Mike Gesicki. Juwan Johnson's a guy that actually, for a tight end, has some explosive play potential. I don't hate it. But this draft class, it reminds me a lot of 2 draft classes ago, that class with Laporta and Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer. It is extremely deep. It's a great tight end class. I would like to see the Chiefs maybe take another bite at the apple there. So just something to consider. Now if Travis Kelce comes back, you don't need to do that. But if he's gone, I think you can't really count on at this point either Jared Wiley or Noah Gray filling those shoes. I mean, nobody's going to fill those shoes, but even like halfway filling those shoes.
Yeah, if Kelsey's gone, I think it's a veteran. By the way, I don't think it's another rookie. I just think that you can't trust a rookie with the unknown of Jared Wiley. That's not what, in my opinion, I don't think the Chiefs would do that. If Kelce retires, I think you're looking at it. I think Juwan Johnson might be the guy, which, again, I don't have a major issue with. I know people are talking about Kyle Pitts. I saw some of the rumor of that. I don't know how much I believe it. Not trying to say that person who had that was a liar, but one person said that who no longer works for the Atlanta radio station. At least that's the one that I saw. I will wait till we hear more substantial rumors. Again, not trying to call that person out, not saying they're wrong, not saying they don't have that inside information, but that was the only person that had anything with that. And it was kind of a throwaway tweet is what it looked like. Yeah, I'm not going to just buy into that just yet without more substance.
Kyle Pitts scares me. It's fun to think about what we thought of Kyle Pitts as a prospect, and then Andy Reid kind of getting to try to salvage that ability. I don't know. He's always beat up. He seems like he might be a little lazy. I don't want to be too rough on the guy, but there's a reason it hasn't worked out when he was picked in the top 5. He was picked ahead of Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, So, and just a little bit of pushback or devil's advocate on this draft class. I do think tight ends are onboarding faster than ever, given how the game is played, given how the college game is played. A couple years ago, I really wanted us to pick Sam Laporta. I like Dalton Kincaid too. I thought Dalton Kincaid would be gone. I really wish we did pick Sam Laporta instead of FAU, but hindsight is 2020. But I just think this offense works better when it has a really good tight end, and would hate to see us without one. Moving on to wide receiver. The starters here are Xavier Worthy, definitely. Rashee Rice. I think so. Hopefully at some point between the injury and the suspension, we might not see him for half the season, but it looks like his recovery is on track. And I wouldn't expect his suspension to be more than, what do you think, 6 games, something like that, max?
Yeah, I said 4 is what I thought, but maybe it is 6. I forget. We did this whole thing last year, and then he got injured, so it didn't matter. I'd have to go back and research again what it was. It's either 4 or 6, but yeah, I think 4 or 6 is about what it's going to be.
You never know with the NFL. Every time I think a guy is going to get a suspension that's like 2 or 4 games, it's Charles Omenihu getting 6, and every time I think it's going to be someone that's going to get 6, they get 2. They're not very consistent, are they?
Nope.
So key free agents here, the Chiefs have some decisions: DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Mecole Hardman. I'm just going to tell you my opinion. Let them all walk. Let them all walk. I think the Chiefs are doing such a good job with the youth movement here and drafting. And this is a position that is very important from a positional value standpoint. But unlike other positions like, say, tackle, there's a surplus of receivers. There are multiple ways to find good ones. And I don't think you have to keep paying these guys. I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, they had their shot and they disappeared in the biggest moments of the postseason. So I think they failed their audition. I hate to be that like harsh, but grading this group, I give Xavier Worthy probably like an A-. Early season, I'm probably giving him like a B- or a C+. And then like late season playoffs, probably like an A+. The rest of this group, they barely pass. I mean, maybe because DeAndre Hopkins and Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown had some moments. Maybe I give them a C against expectations.
Yeah, overall, I think wide receiver was about a B- versus expectations. It's tough with all the injuries. Like, we don't know because of Rasheed. We don't really know because of Hollywood. Justin Watson did his role yet again. Juju exceeded what I thought he was going to do, which take that as you will. He's a great blocker, too. Let's be real. He has a certain role. Xavier Worthy was outstanding. 100% with you with your thought process on Xavier. I think I'm with you, letting all those guys walk. I guess the only guy I take the back. Two guys I think I would like to at least entertain. Hollywood, depending on the contract. It all depends on the contract. But the more I dove into it, didn't make a lot of sense because not a yak guy. In a now yak-first offense, with how the offense is being run, you need guys with yards after catch. That's never been Hollywood's game. You think it would be, but it hasn't been. Rasheed Rice, by the way, was third in all of football in his last full season. I think the drafting spot is the way to go. I would consider Juju coming back just because of the blocking ability and what he does. Like, I think there's value there, but I don't know if you want to bring back him and Watson, different styles of player, but you probably only bring back one of those veterans. I think you draft one. Yeah, I know. I've seen Cooper Kupp being thrown around, stuff like that. I just don't think so. I don't think Cooper. I just don't think it. I think it's going to happen. I wouldn't mind it, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Nico Remigio probably has the special team spot on lock, whether it's wide receiver 5 or 6. I think he's probably going to be that role. I know everyone says, where's our AJ? I see where's our AJ Brown, and we need a 6-foot physical wide receiver. That was DeAndre Hopkins. The Chiefs don't use that. I am now so far, while I understand and what I want to see, yes, 100% with you. The Chiefs don't use those guys. It doesn't fit their offense. I did all this research and looked into it. Their offense is completely short yards now. The average depth of target was 41st. No, that's not a mistake. Patrick's average depth of target this year was 41st. 41st. There are 32 teams, Adam. This
I know.
You need.
They're gonna change that though. They have to evolve from that. They've taken that as far as you can take it. They've taken that too far. And I know Andy Reid can adapt to these kind of guys. He had Terrell Owens, so it's not impossible for Andy Reid to cater to that kind of receiver. With DeAndre Hopkins, he had some games where he looked pretty damn good in the season, particularly that Tampa Bay Monday night game. I think he wasn't right down the stretch because he just completely faded. I mean, he completely faded. He did a disappearing act. You have to wonder if that knee held up or I don't know. On Cooper Kupp, I'm out. The guy can't stay on the field. And if you want that kind of guy, there's a better one out there. Chris Godwin led the league in receptions at the time of his injury. Very good player. You could see him being kind of a yak guy moving in and out of the slot in Kansas City. Probably will be a little too expensive, but if the Chiefs are worried about Rasheed Rice and they want a similar guy to get their offense going, that is someone they could look at. By the way, Rasheed Rice last season, the only wide receiver with higher yards per route run, Puka Nacua. That's it. Now, somewhat limited sample size, but I think it's been so long. We forget that guy came out of the gate like a cannon, man. He was unbelievable early on in the season. He looked like he was going to be a top 12 or 15 wide receiver last season at worst, probably going to put up like 1,200, 1,300 yards at that pace. So still have high hopes for him. Some other possibilities, cut candidates, maybe like a Christian Kirk could be a possibility. Nothing super excited. I know you and I in the past have kind of salivated over Deontay Johnson, but it's kind of hard to do that with all the sort of attitude problems and so many teams moving on from him in a short span of time. But that could be a salvation project the Chiefs look at. Personally, I think they should continue the successful strategy of just perpetually reloading via the draft every year at receiver in the first 3 rounds. Kind of do what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done so well. And if you need to let these guys walk because you don't want them to age out or you don't want to pay them 20 or 30 million, just keep drafting. We've seen that Andy Reid, I give Andy Reid credit here. He's getting better, significantly better at bringing along these rookie receivers. I've been impressed. I think I was even more impressed with the job he did with Worthy, given that he was 21 years old, than the job he did with 23-year-old Rashee Rice, which was kind of onboarded a little slower. Let's hit up tackle next. This is probably the most interesting one on the list. The starters are right tackle, Jawan Taylor. Guys, there's no way we're getting out of that contract. 2026, yes, you can absolutely walk away from his contract. Not this year. It would be a catastrophic cap casualty. So left tackle is the big question mark. And the key free agent here is DJ Humphries. Sterling, I just want to pick your brain here. What is the sort of state of the union on the tackle position?
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, let's be real. It's not great, and I don't know where they go. Because I did this whole thing on radio today. So glad Nick Jacobs, 41, pulled a whole bunch of numbers. I'll go down the left tackle list right here and give some thoughts. Here is where these guys were drafted overall: 6th, 14th, 7th, 20th, 15th, 13th, 4th, 16th, 23rd, 6th, 14th, 13th, 6th, 9th. 13th, 4th, 9th. Notice a trend? Where those guys drafted?
First half of the first round.
Yeah, those are all first round guys, and that's about 19 or 20 of them. There are a couple that have been in the 2nd and 3rd. There are 2 that were in the 7th, 1 that was undrafted. If you're drafting
Jordan Mailata, throw him out. That he's a freak from rugby who has the best offensive line coach in the league. You can't repeat what the Eagles did there.
So I'm just sitting here going, you can draft a tackle in the 2nd or 3rd, Kingsley Suamataia style. You can draft someone at 31, but you're now drafting the outlier. You're now even the 23rd was so far down. I have so many concerns with the draft of a left tackle. Even the guys that were drafted high have been right tackles in recent years. Penei Sewell, Joe Alt. Left tackle is just so hard. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, a Debbie Downer. I apologize, and that's how it's going to come off. I just don't want to lie to people and be like, there's an easy, realistic fix at left tackle. Throw money at it or throw picks at it, and it's going to work. That's not the case. History has shown us that it's just not the case. The Chiefs are too good. Quite frankly, it's their own doing. They're too good to draft a good left tackle. And great left tackles hardly come up. So what it comes down to is, are you going to overspend for Cam Robinson, who the Jaguars basically were already sick of, and he went to Minnesota? Are you going to overspend for a guy who's very injury prone like Ronnie Stanley? Are you going to take another shot on trying to draft and develop a tackle like Kingsley Suamataia? Well, you already have that developmental guy in your roster. If you give up on him after 1 year, then what are you doing? I think the best option, no one wants to hear it, but I think the best, most realistic option is you re-sign DJ Humphries. He's not going to be expensive. You hope he stays healthy and see what he can do with a training camp and a healthy year and have him compete with Kingsley Suamataia. Again, I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but I'm also not trying to get everyone super excited about an easy fix for left tackle, because there just is not one.
Well, not only is there not an easy fix, I think we're putting too much weight on this one thing. It wasn't just left tackle. It was that we had an unplayable left guard. The right side of the offensive line just did not do its job in the Super Bowl. Guys weren't getting open. The running game was pedestrian and put fear in nobody's heart. And fixing all those problems, even if you stayed the same at left tackle, could make left tackle way more less of a problem. It's tough. Kingsley Suamataia, I am not out on him. I think Wanya Morris at this point, you have to say he's a swing tackle. He's kind of Cam Irving. There's nothing wrong with that. Getting a swing tackle in the 3rd round, that's something you need. You need a good depth piece. I wouldn't count on him starting. Kingsley Suamataia could even move to guard potentially, but I'm not out on him. If you have DJ Humphries and Kingsley Suamataia as your 2 left tackle prospects, I think you have to bring in a vet to compete. I think you have to maybe draft another guy in the 2nd or 3rd. Now, a lot of those guys don't work out, but Buffalo has shown that if you take enough, again, bites at the apple, they hit on Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins in the 2nd and 3rd round. It's unlikely that you're going to hit on both those guys, but I think if they took another guy, the chances of Kingsley or them hitting are eventually somewhat decent. So
again, last thought, just quick tidbit here. It's why I don't want to give up on Kingsley too early, even though everyone is pretty much already thrown the talent, is what it feels like. I think I'm more optimistic than most fans are on Kingsley. He just turned 22. He has the pedigree as far as the traits that you like to see. I think it was almost all mental, right? I think it was mostly mental. And the track record for left tackles, the guys even listed those, 4th overall, 6th overall, 3rd. Most of them struggled their rookie year. The issue is they're on bad teams. So those teams could afford to give them the entire year to work through it. The Chiefs were going for a 3-peat. They didn't have time to give them a full year to work through it. There's nuance to all of this stuff, right? And it's just one of those situations I've talked about. I think tackle outside of quarterback is the hardest transition from college to the NFL. And all those guys need time to work it out and figure it out. A lot of times it takes a year or 2 to really get going. So again, if it were me, I'm going Kingsley and DJ Humphries. Try to figure it out. That's what I think the Chiefs probably do as well. And if you want to draft another tackle, 100% Adam, I'm with you there. I think it does make some sense. I think Wanya is your swing guy, and I think Kingsley will be a starter at some place on this offensive line, whether it's left tackle, right tackle, or guard. I just think they need him to get a full offseason and get his mind right.
So grade here, man, the expectations were pretty high. And I think Brett Veach made a gamble here, and we kind of got to dock him on that not working out. Donovan Smith worked out beautifully. It really did work out. He went back to that well and tried to do it again. Didn't work out as well. I'm probably going to give this group a D. When things are so bad that your first 3 options don't work out and you have to move a guard to left tackle during a Super Bowl run for a 3-peat, man, you just did not plan properly. And Jawan Taylor was not as good as the previous year, I didn't think. You hit a couple options. Cam Robinson, I'm not necessarily out on him. 29, maybe the best multi-year solution. I am totally out on Ronnie Stanley. He's missed in the past 5 years, something like 42, 43% of games. He was miraculously healthy in his contract season, which is a little worrisome that the guy can't get healthy until the bag is on the line. A couple other guys, Alaric Jackson from the Rams, 26, played incredible. I think he hurt his leg or something like that. 32-inch arms, probably going to be a problem. I don't think the Rams are going to let him go. Guy out of Pittsburgh, Dan Moore Jr., he's okay. 26 or something, somewhat low ceiling. I think to get a guy that has the shot to start from the draft this year, they're probably going to have to trade up in the top 15 or so. Yeah. And I don't know that they want to do that. Also, I will say, though, the Orlando Brown Jr. route, I wouldn't want to trade for a wide receiver because you can find them from so many places. I wouldn't want to trade for a running back because you can find them from so many places. But a quarterback or an edge or a left tackle, these positions that are extremely rare to find someone at that high level, I would be totally fine if the Chiefs are just like, we have to make a big trade for a left tackle, even if it costs a pretty penny, because where we draft, we're just not going to be able to solve this problem for the long term unless we make a move like that. Yeah. Let's hit up guard now. This is also extremely interesting. We have starters, left guard Joe Thuney. I imagine he's going to be back probably on a restructured contract to allow the Chiefs to have a little bit more money to spend. He struggled in the Super Bowl at left tackle, but the point is they never should have asked that of him. The fact that he was doing that was crazy in the first place. So one of the best guards in the league, even if he is just an average tackle. Right guard, we talked about maybe moving Kingsley Suamataia there. But the big key free agent is Trey Smith. And then Mike Caliendo, lesser so at left guard. I'm kind of interested or surprised actually that Trey Smith, coming off that Super Bowl, which I think he looked pretty bad as a pass protector, is the number 1 or 2 free agent on most people's list that I'm looking at. And he is, Trey Smith has a great personality. He's a good dude. He plays his guts out. I think he's one of the best run blockers in the league. But as a pass protector, especially last year, he left a lot to be desired. He's kind of oft penalized. I don't really I'm not trying to trash Trey. He's an incredible player, but one of the top 2 guys in the entire free agent market, I'm kind of not seeing the value, particularly for the Chiefs, where pass protecting and protecting your billion-dollar quarterback is really priority 1, 2, and 3. Where are you at with Trey Smith?
Trey Smith, you are a Chicago Bear. That's what it seems like. Honestly, he's a 6th rounder. He's not made a lot of money in his NFL career yet. He's probably going to go and sign for the highest amount. And I think the Bears can offer a lot more money than what the Chiefs can offer. So I think it makes sense for both of those parties. I'm with you. Trey Smith, I think, is a really good guard. But I don't know if he's like this elite guard that it seems like he keeps getting thrown out as. I think he's really, really good. Really, really good.
He's not Joe Thuney.
He's not Joe Thuney, right? He's not Joe Thuney. He's not Chris Lindstrom. Like, that's what I think when I think of, like, elite guards, right? I think he's really, really good. Yeah, I think the Chiefs probably walk here. I don't know where's that. Do they say guards relatively speaking, relatively easy to fill? There's a lot of guys out there. The Chiefs will find a way, whether it's a young guy or it's going to be a veteran on a relatively cheap deal. They'll fill that right guard spot. I'm not worried about that, especially when you have Joe and Creed still there. That interior is still going to be damn good. I just think that the Chiefs would be best suited to spend that money elsewhere, unless Clark says, hey, we're going to give you all a signing bonus. And if that's the case, then sign Trey Smith back here.
And I'm happy for Trey Smith. Going from where he came from, worrying that he might not get drafted because of his medicals, and then getting picked in the 6th round to where he's come, you got to admire the hard work and dedication and his ability to persevere. But I just don't think it's a good business decision from the Chiefs. And if I had to grade this unit, man, Mike Caliendo was just unplayable in that Super Bowl. And Trey, I thought Trey was better the year before. I'm going to give this unit like a D, man. Where are you at with that grade?
For the guard specifically?
Yeah, for the
I would say, like, well, it depends if you count Joe. Because if you count Joe moving to left tackle, it's like an A, because that's just ridiculous. If you count when he moved to left tackle, he's now only a tackle. So it's what Caliendo and Trey Smith did. That number goes way, way down.
Incomplete.
Incomplete. That's just too hard for me because of the changes. Because I didn't have super high expectations for Caliendo. He didn't meet the expectations I had, but Joe was phenomenal all year long, and Trey was an above average guard. I see people talking about tagging and trading or franchise tagging Trey Smith. The franchise tag for Trey is 21 million, says Chris Wright. I believe it's actually 26 or 27, right? It's the entire offensive line as a whole. It's not, there's no guard spot. It's just offensive line, which includes tackles. I got to look that back up. I had this conversation yesterday with actually Verderam. I think it was 26 or 27. So you're not going to franchise tag Trey Smith, more than likely. Now I'm seeing tag and trade. I don't think that happens either because of the compensatory pick that would happen. And is a team going to give you more than the compensatory pick? The reason why the Chiefs did with L'Jarius Sneed was instead of getting the back end of the third round, they got basically the Titans' third rounder. I don't know if the Bears are going to, and that's a cornerback position of immense value. I don't think they're going to tag and trade Trey Smith because I don't think you're getting a third rounder back. I don't think a team's going to give a third rounder to turn around and make Trey Smith the highest paid guard in football. I don't think that behooves Kansas City. So while it makes sense, you're like, how can we find a way to get something out of Trey? What you're getting is a compensatory pick, right? That's, I think, the way it's going to end up working.
Given their cap situation and what Trey is set to be paid, they're going to get a good comp pick out of this. I don't know if it's going to end up being a third rounder, but it'll probably end up being at least a fourth rounder. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And there's some really good options here. There's one I'm excited about. It may not be the sexiest thing in the world, but it just makes too much sense. So right guard Brandon Scherf from the Jacksonville Jaguars, former top 5 pick, played in Washington. 2018 to 2021, he was a little banged up, but the past 3 years, he has played all 17 games, and he's graded out as a better pass protector than Trey Smith. Now, he's not nearly as good in the run, but he's a really good pass protector. And guess what? 3 years ago, he played right next to Jawan Taylor when Jawan Taylor had his best season as a pass protector. So there's continuity there. You could probably get him for 40 cents on the dollar, what you're paying for Trey Smith. Spend that money elsewhere. I think the Chiefs are going to spend in some areas that might surprise fans. I'm kind of expecting them maybe to go out and get a safety just because at this juncture twice previously they've done that, and it's a good safety class. So I like Brandon Scherf. I like Will Fries out of Indianapolis. He's the guy that fractured his tibia. There we go. But he is a 27-year-old for Indianapolis, graded out of this world, but a short track record. You have Tevin Jenkins from the Bears, who's good, but is always hurt. I don't think he's really a guy you want to rely on. And then if you want to go even older than Scherf for like a stopgap veteran, Zach Martin, Kevin Zeitler, these guys are great fallback options. And they can always draft another guard, have a competition, and Hunter Norzad and Kingsley Suamataia. I'm guessing even Wanye Morris could potentially be a guard if they give up on him at swing tackle. So drafting a guy is also a possibility. Center, this is going to take us about 2 seconds. The starters, Creed Humphrey, there are no key free agents. Thoughts on the group, grade A+, best center in the league. The one thing I never thought we would have to worry about something on the Chiefs offense less than quarterback. But right now Creed Humphrey is the thing that I am the least worried about on this offense. Are you there with me?
100% A+, best center in the NFL. Dude is phenomenal in pass block, run block, doesn't matter. All those questions about the snaps and, rolling it back and the inconsistencies at the end of the year prior, those all went away. He worked on a new snap, doing the dead ball snap, not a single issue this season. Congratulations to Creed Humphrey, in my opinion, because that was not talked about. When you're not talking about that, that is a damn good thing. You completely switch how you snap the football after you've been doing it a certain way for probably your whole entire career, college, high school, and you do it and you change and there is no issues. Here's to you. His pass block and run block did not change, which there was some thought process of, will that go down if he tries the dead ball snap? The reason being, you have to stand up a little higher. I talked to Creed Humphrey about this before the season started, actually. And he basically said, well, he actually is always the guy who stood up a little higher. So for him, it wouldn't be a big change. He was right. A lot of guys just said it to maybe try and make themselves better, to talk it up. No, Creed never had an issue. Creed Humphrey, crack open a cold one. You deserve it.
I honestly didn't even think he was that bad in the Super Bowl. It just, everything was going to shit around him. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So Creed Humphrey, that is a guy, I don't say this about a lot of Chiefs, but I never want to see him wear another uniform. That's how good Creed Humphrey is. I want him to only play for the Chiefs, to go in the Hall of Fame as a Chief. And to be the guy that snaps to Patrick Mahomes for the next 6, 7, 8 years. I think that's what we're looking at with Creed Humphrey. And it's good to have that position as solidified as it possibly could be. Lastly here, let's hit up special teams, starters, kicker Harrison Butker. I think he's coming back. Returner Nico Remigio. Remigio was one of the surprises, the pleasant surprises of the postseason. I think that audition on the biggest stage in the NFL earned him the job this year. I would expect to see him back. I would expect to see him back instead of McCole Hardman. The big question mark here, and I think this group grades pretty well. I don't know if they get an A, but they get at least a B. Harrison Butker wasn't himself, but in the playoffs was himself. And Remigio was great. But punter Matt Araiza, the punt god, which I didn't find him to be exactly that in the Super Bowl. Where are you at with bringing him back? Do you miss Tommy Townsend or what?
I think Tommy's better, but not for the amount of money difference, personally. I thought Matt Araiza is very raw, and I was surprised at the lack of touch from Araiza and just the lack of consistency for all of the talk about, how far he can punt in the ball. I don't think we really saw any sort of, like, every once in a while. I guess maybe I was maybe expectations were too high. And maybe that's on us. Maybe the expectations were too high. But when you go from Dustin Colquitt to Tommy Townsend, great punters in Kansas City, and then you see this, and it wasn't like Matt Araiza was horrible. Don't get it twisted. I don't think he was like this massive issue. I just think I expected more of him. I was a little let down by that. Butker was, again, Harrison Butker when he was healthy. I really like Butker, man. Just such a damn good kicker, such a great weapon to have. Nico Remigio, you mentioned it. Phenomenal surprise. Lovely to see. Yeah, I bet Araiza's back. I bet he's back.
Man, I just feel the quote that pops in my head with Matt Araiza is that everything looks like a nail to a hammer. The guy just doesn't have any touch or any finesse. He just hammers it into the end zone. I mean, that's great if you're on your own 20-yard line, but if you're on the 50 and you're trying to pin them inside the 10, he just basically had no shot. I miss Tommy Townsend. Sometimes I still do the Tommy Townsend walk around the house, and just showing up with the goggles and the personality at the parades. He was kind of an all-time goofball in the best possible way that all of us really loved and are going to remember. So, but you're right. He's young. He's kind of been through a lot. I think you can't teach his power. You can't teach having a leg like Matt Araiza. I think you can, to some extent, teach. I don't want to take away how difficult it is, but I think he can learn to have more his punt location, his touch, some of those things. I do think there's room for improvement. Unless the Chiefs can find a better option, they've got bigger problems than him. Sterling, let's finish up with what's spinning here. What are you listening to, man?
You go first.
All right. I forgot to bring my record out here, but there's this album called Turkish Freakout. And what it is a compilation of Turkish psychedelic music, kind of like psych rock, classic rock from Turkey in like the 60s and 70s. And it is awesome, man. I've been looking for this record because I've heard it on YouTube and I liked it. I've been looking for this record online at a decent price for a while, and I finally found it in the last 2 weeks. Put the record on; it did not disappoint. So if you like stuff from the 60s and 70s, from Pink Floyd to the Animals to Zombies, whatever. This kind of stuff is your speed. You can find Turkish Freakout on Spotify for sure. That's where I found the album. So check it out.
Yeah. I guess for me, I was watching the SNL, 50 years, the performances, music side of things, and then some of those skits and stuff. Brandi Carlile sang, and Brandi Carlile was incredible. Just ridiculous voice. Just so strong, powerful. So Brandi Carlile, Jack White as well. I thought Jack White is just so fun. Thinking about trying to see him soon when he comes to either Kansas City or maybe even Omaha. Really want to see him. Never seen Jack White in concert. I've seen you know me, I'm a big music guy. Somehow I haven't seen him sold out both spots, but tickets are expensive on the secondary market. So we will find out if we are going to Omaha or seeing him in KC. I'm going to see if I can try and pull some strings, but we'll find out. But yeah, I love Jack White. So I get a lot of Jack White plus the White Stripes.
I saw Jack White. I saw the White Stripes, by the way, phenomenal. But I saw Jack White here about 2 years ago. And what I liked about him versus Robert Plant, who as a huge Zeppelin fan, I obviously like idolize, but Robert Plant plays and he doesn't do any Zeppelin songs. Jack White plays and he's like, yeah, I'm going to give you White Stripes. I'm going to give you Raconteurs. I'm going to give you all the stuff you like. And I'm going to do some of my stuff too. And I really like his new album. I think actually I talked about his new album, but he puts on a show, man. And I think he really likes, even at his age, he likes getting up there and being a rock star and doing his thing. I couldn't help while watching those performances, the Lil Wayne performance. I sort of think like New Orleans. I like Kendrick Lamar, no shade, but I thought Lil Wayne maybe should have been the Super Bowl halftime show.
Well, I did until I heard the SNL performance.
Not a fan of that. I'll tell you what, though, performing rap live is tough, man. It is tough. It doesn't always go well.
Yeah, I didn't think it went well, the SNL one. I would, because I said the same thing. I would have loved like Currency or Lil Wayne because they're from New Orleans. Oh man, I did not think I don't think the band did him a ton of favors. I love Questlove, and Questlove, I thought, struggled a little bit. Rap drumming can be really fun, but it can be difficult, especially when there's a DJ involved. And I thought it was difficult for them to get on the same page. And I just thought it was a little bit of a mismatch. My personal opinion.
But it's possible because they did Unplugged with Jay-Z about 20 years ago. And it was spectacular, but it sometimes it just doesn't work.
And I just didn't think it worked that particular SNL. Again, personal opinion. Everyone has. I love Lil Wayne. I love Questlove. Questlove's incredible. I just didn't think that matched together. Personal opinion.
Have you gone back and watched the halftime Super Bowl show yet? Or the Super Bowl halftime show?
I watched part of it live, and it's fine. It's just okay. It's fine. I know myself. I'm a classic rock guy. I do like some rap, but I like Currency. I like Kendrick Lamar's old stuff, like Section 80. Section 80 was awesome. Good Kid, Mad City. But even like the Humble album, I didn't think was very good. And that was the one that won all the awards. I've liked the ones that he's done that, quite frankly, were the ones that didn't win anything. While the ones that have won stuff, I'm like, not for me. I don't know. I guess I'm weird.
Yeah, I'm with you. But we're kind of in a petty mood as a country. And I think having the Eagles win the Super Bowl and having him basically perform the most famous diss song of all time kind of like fits who we are as a nation right now. So I don't know. What are you going to do? If you guys dig Arrowhead Addict, here's how you can help our community grow. First off, subscribe to our YouTube channel here. That way you never miss a show. You never miss a short. We'll keep cranking out content for you. A lot of football coverage kind of dials down this time of year. We do not stop. The off season is kind of our season. We love it. We're going to keep going for you guys. If you are an audio listener, we're always available on Spotify and Apple. Please consider giving us a 5-star review there. That will really help Sterling and myself out. If you ask a question, we'll answer it on Thursday's show. I'm going to be on it tomorrow with Patrick Allen, the OG Hour. As always, check out arrowheadaddict.com, the mothership where it all started. Matt Connor and the gang over there always do good work. Thanks to the chat. You guys always bring it. You guys always keep us going. Rush hour here on Wacky Wednesday. Join us live next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central here on the Arrowhead Addict channel. We will take a look at the defensive side of the roster. Until then, go Chiefs.